Well, hello there, and welcome back to Good in the Middle Way. I'm your host Rob, and I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome back. How have you been? I hope that this finds you well. Today we're going to be talking about something near and dear to my heart. This is one of the most important things we have to address for ourselves, observe and maybe assist with others, and really develop some, empathy for the world that is suffering from depression, mental illness, and the like. And today we're going to see how the middle way can sort of lay a great pathwork for us to stabilize, to reinforce ourselves, enrich ourselves, and also really just address things at the root. In the middle way, the Buddha has said, all things that are coming from the mind are going to cease, meaning that all things arising in the mind have, by their nature then have to cease. But also how all these things, they're just happening within ourselves. And if we address them and the phenomena within ourselves, we can move forward more freely if we're actually addressing it, if we're shining the light of awareness onto these things. And you see, the number one thing in Buddhism, First Noble Truth, is that there is suffering, and to exist is to experience suffering. Now, we all might be in the theater of suffering, but some of us definitely have a front row seat. And I really want to highlight things for those of us who are in those first rows. If it was SeaWorld or something, we would get the splash zone. And I consider those people to be those with severe mental illness, those who struggle with addiction, really heavy major depression, and the suicidality. And personally, I know this journey because I am on that journey. I live this journey as a person who suffers from major depression and have had my history that was, those rough and tumbled years. And I really feel it's a good time to be sharing this because I think a lot of us are suffering and going through this, and especially men, we tend to suffer in silence, though it's not gender specific. It takes a lot of courage and inner bravery to get that vulnerable. And so the middle way for me has been a wonderful path that was accessible, as the Buddha prescribed this for all. It's very accessible, whether you're rich, poor, able-bodied, handicapped. It's dealing with the mind, and it's trying to deal with what causes suffering. What is the root cause of this suffering? And the Buddha had said, this is attachment, this is craving, this is this mind that is grasping and wanting, desiring a different state, desiring to feel a different way, desiring a physical object, which is tied up into these multitude of thoughts that are happening, basically instantaneously, one after the other, crescendoing of, if I get this thing, maybe I'll feel better or whatever, but you're not even thinking or sub-vocalizing all that. You're just like, I'm gonna get this nice sweet and I'm gonna eat it and I'm gonna feel good, or you don't even think even that part. You're just like, nice sweet, yum, and you go and you eat. So yeah, I think that's a good place for us to kind of start and that is in acknowledging. And when we acknowledge the suffering, we can move forward on the path that it's beautifully laid out, but we move into acknowledging. Plain and simple, we just have to start to acknowledge our suffering in all its different forms, and then get curious as to why we are suffering. What is causing this? What role do I play in creating this suffering? Is it because I have this desire to be in a certain state or have a certain amount of money, and then, if I don't have that, I'm not happy? Then, you could kind of backtrack it to if I don't cling to wanting this money thing so bad, it wouldn't be so bad. And that's one example that affects many of us, but, we each have our own thing because we each are dealing with this human mind. And part of it is just hardwired. The science now is showing that. The science is showing how, from a Western perspective, and a modern perspective that is as well, is how as a biological organism, these things are subconsciously happening. You don't think about them. You just get thirsty at some point because your body has signaled to you that you need water. And the same way that you will be in an environment and something might be happening and you start to dissociate. You don't choose to dissociate. You didn't say, oh no, it's time to back out of here. Your mind is scanning so fast, it recognizes something and it says, oh, this is stressful. This is something I have to go smoke a cigarette. I have to get away from this. I have to not be so engaged. And so through that, we could give ourselves a little grace that this mind that we identify with, this conventional self, wherever it's residing in our, wherever it's residing, I'd love for us to find out. But, we'll say for our mind, where we think we're in control. We think that we're really steering the ship when we're really the last to know. And that's even within ourselves, let alone how we're perceiving reality. It's like whatever has happened has to come in. We have to recognize through all of our sensory organs, and then we, make a determination of what that experience was. But that's really at the end of it. We've already, gone, that moment's already gone, as we were speaking about also before. So it's like moment by moment by moment, it's like, oh, I'm just trying to catch up to being here right now, being present. And so I would pivot a little bit though to talk about depression. I think that's a major one affecting so many people now. And depression is a spectrum, I believe. I believe there's biological things that affect some of us. I think there's situational things, and those are well documented between the bio and the situational. But also, in those spectrums, there's more details that any of us can add. And grief, let's say, can cause a real heavy sadness, and it's all in that subfolder within ourselves and within life. So what can we do about that? And we have to remember that we are not our thoughts. We have to remember that these states of mind will change. And I think that's a really heavy one that we could just sit with for a while and just really acknowledge. Because in those moments, we might feel as if this is forever and I am bound here and I will never feel better again. And some part of us believes that. And if you experience depression, you know how easy it could be to get locked in and kind of make this, this prison for ourselves that we consciously, we're like, we don't want to make this, we don't want to experience this, we want this to end, but we also don't believe it'll end. So there's a problem there. And that's why it's really important to remember, mindfully recalling, oh, what did the Buddha say? And in fact, not just the Buddha, but oh wait, these situations, they don't last. Some of them, we don't know when they end, but they don't last forever. None of it. And we will neutralize if we get through. And we just, you don't have to believe that you're going to be over the moon and in the rainbows and sunshine, and you don't even have to aim for such a thing immediately. You just have to try to aim to be a little bit better, feel a little bit better, and letting go of some of that attachment, which, these books here, they wonderfully lay out. And I also love to mention, because I respect other traditions as well, even though we're really focusing on the middle way, but I still bow and give homage to them too, because they're have some really good stuff if you're practicing. If you really believe the text that you're reading from all the major religions, they have an antidote for you. They have a path laid out, the same way that the middle way has a path laid out. Follow these steps and you'll essentially become more stabilized. Even if you suffer the most severe mental illnesses with the biggest mood swings you can imagine, if you can mindfully adhere to some of the prescriptions and suggestions on this path, you will come to relax. You will come to, I love the Spanish word tranquilo. There's this, you might not experience full tranquility, going into nirvana, let's say, or whatever attainment, but you will start to feel better. You'll start to realize those results and feel those results within yourself and start to live a better life. Or rather, your interpretation of your life will become different and it will become better, because it's giving you a framework on how to deal with your own emotions and your own suffering. And now, so for us on the middle way, there's a lot of sitting and a lot of meditation and, following these thoughts, but trying not to cling to them. Again, not to identify. You are not your thoughts. And if you have a good thought, you might want it to last longer. I still do. The bad thoughts, have to really remind myself, it's gonna pass, or this is just a silly thought, just let it go. That's what my mentor Tony had said recently in one of our classes. It's a silly thought comes in, they're intrusive, it doesn't matter. Don't get caught up on it. Just go to the next one. It's kind of like old TV. There's always a commercial, even YouTube now, right? There's always a commercial, there's always something else to play right after, and don't get too caught up. And to realize that these situations that are also making us so sad are one day going to pass. I remember, this quote recently from Morgan Freeman too, where he's just saying, and one day they'll die and the world will move on. And in the same way, our bad situations will move on. Our bad moods, they will move on. Sometimes we need a little more rest. Sometimes, go have a sleep. Sometimes we need to drink more water. Specifically, a lot of us are dehydrated, and in that depression, we start to forget. And we could go on for hours, and we will talk more about mental illness and where does it fit into, the middle way in these older texts, right? They didn't have that language, but they talk about these things as mental afflictions and how they can really take a strong root. They have a strong wind I think the Tibetan system would say they have a strong wind about them, some of these afflictions, and they have a deep root. So to address those deep roots is going to take more than, even just a couple hours of talking. Once you get this information, you have to really practice it. You have to really get down deep in yourself and take time with it. And it will literally evolve as you evolve. And you'll come to a place where all of this becomes more bearable. And I think that's kind of where I want to leave you on, is trying to give you this message of hope throughout this. We truly, truly need that. This is a sandbox too, right? Mistakes are welcome. I said that episode 1. And I forgot to turn off some audio, and that's distracted me. But it's okay. Because that's life. It's okay. It's all okay. Don't get bent out of shape over all the little things. Just keep it pushing. It's okay. Especially little things like this, Sometimes you got to pick up the pieces, and other things you might have a big impact and you can't put the pieces back together. And, but even then, don't dwell too long. Because these depressive moods and depressive states, we have to not feed those afflictions, and we'll call it feeding those demons. We just can't feed them. Don't feed them. Enjoy more wholesome content. Enjoy the things you love. Go out and fly a kite. I recently did that. I forgot how fun it was, and I could highly recommend it. Have a laugh. Comedy is great. We forget the power of laughter and how just removing ourselves mentally from the situation that we've planted ourselves in. When we move to a different scene, it's all different. And it's just really important, because the closer you are to this stage of life suffering, the closer you feel you are in the crowd. And then you could be up in the top balcony, right, and be totally immersed in the show, and like the same way with a movie, and wait, what happened? Didn't matter how far I was away, I was in it. But change the scene. Step back. Take care of yourself and enjoy your life. So, thank you again for joining me on the journey. If this is helpful to you, please like, subscribe, only if you feel inclined, just to help others kind of find us and join us too. But always no pressure. That's not why we're here. I'm just happy that you're here with me, trying to better ourselves. So I wish you well. I wish you nothing but happiness, good health, and the conditions to be free of suffering. Peace in. and peace out. Thanks for joining, and until next time.